So in this close read, we're focusing on setting's impact on character development. We're looking at setting and seeing how it's significant, how it can lead to plot development, to conflict, how it can reveal things that could be important to the plot or to character development. So when we look at this first excerpt, the misery of that house began many years before Jem and I were born. The Radleys, welcome anywhere in town, kept to themselves, a predilection unforgivable in Maycomb. They did not go to church, Maycomb's principal recreation, but worshipped at home. Mrs. Radley seldom, if ever, crossed the street for a mid-morning coffee break with her neighbors, and certainly never joined a missionary circle. Mr. Radley walked to town at 11:30 every morning and came back promptly at 12, sometimes carrying a brown paper bag that the neighborhood assumed contained the family groceries. I never knew how old Mr. Radley made his living. Jem said he bought cotton, a polite term for doing nothing. But Mr. Radley and his wife had lived there with their 2 sons as long as anybody could remember. The shutters and doors of the Radley house were closed on Sundays, another thing alien to Maycomb's ways. Closed doors meant illness and cold weather only. Of all days, Sunday was the day for formal afternoon visiting. Ladies wore corsets, men wore coats, children wore shoes. But to climb the Radley front steps and call hey of a Sunday afternoon was something their neighbors never did. The Radley house had no screen doors. So I want to take a few moments to explain some references that you just might be unfamiliar with. In Maycomb, a missionary circle, it was really like a tea party for ladies. They'd dress up and have tea and they'd have baked goods. And they were there to talk about missionary work as far as the missionaries maybe from their churches or community. But in reality, it was just an opportunity for them to get together and to gossip. When it says here that he was carrying a brown paper bag, when it says the neighborhood assumed it contained the family groceries, you have to read between the lines. If it's important enough to bring up, you should infer that they're being polite by saying it's the family groceries, and we would infer that it really probably contains alcohol, especially since we know Mr. Radley doesn't really do anything for a living. Now, let's take a look at the first question. What does this setting reveal about the Radleys? Well, you can look at the setting of Maycomb. You can also look at the setting of the Radley home. So if we start with the setting of Maycomb and what it reveals, when we look, we see that everyone goes to church, and it's more than just to practice a religion. It's a recreation. It's a social event. And so we can tell that in Maycomb, socializing is very important, but the Radleys choose not to go to church, which means really they're choosing not to socialize. And then here it says Mrs. Radley doesn't go to the missionary circles, and that means she abstains from interacting in that social way with the other ladies of Maycomb. And that would be very much counter to the norms, it sounds like, of Maycomb. And also, if you look carefully, it says that they're welcome anywhere. So it's not like they're being kept out. It's a choice that the Radleys are making. So I think that's also interesting and reveals a lot about the Radleys. They choose not to interact with other people. It's not like they're not accepted. Here, on Sundays, the shutters and doors are closed. This is kind of symbolic. It's not really about doors and shutters. It's about the fact that they're not open to visitors and to interacting with people who are taking walks or visiting. The same thing with the screen doors. It's not about what kind of doors they have. It's the fact that you can't yell in or out. You can't leave the door open. So it's really symbolic of the choice they make not to interact with the people of Maycomb. So I have here, they seem like reclusive outsiders. And when you're reclusive, it means you don't really go out and interact with the community or with the outside world. They don't fit in with the rest of Maycomb, but it sounds like a choice rather than something imposed upon them by an unaccepting Maycomb. I'm going to skip down here because we kind of talked about this one as well. What does the setting of the Radley home reveal about the setting of Maycomb? Well, I think it reveals that people in Maycomb are very social. It sounds like going to church is a norm. So most of Maycomb probably belongs to some sect of Christianity. And it sounds like everybody knows everybody.